This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. So I'm super excited to speak to today's guest. She's a marketing thought leader, a social media expert, an influential speaker, and an award-winning author. She has over 20 years of digital marketing experience and now specializes in the food and beverage industry. She's the author of the Jersey Shore Cookbook, which made the Publishers Weekly top 20 nonfiction books of the summer in 2016. She's the owner and executive editor of Jersey Bites, which is turning 18 years old this week. And her day job is the owner and president of Foxtrot Media. Deborah Smith, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to join.
So what is the single most powerful strategy for success in your marketing agency these days?
Oh, wow. Well, I have to say consistent lead generation because, we work in the restaurant field and the restaurant industry is a very fluid one. So that's one thing that just has to be a part of an ongoing, agency life here. And then of course, just great staffing. We have really wonderful employees. One has been with me for 14 years. They're invaluable, the years of memory that they have, and just knowledge and experience really makes us stand out, I believe.
So with the lead generation, the need for consistency there, is that because the, restaurants were kind of volatile and some
Correct.
unfortunately go out of business every year?
Yeah. And, I just got an email over the weekend from someone that, they're just finding it, profitability is really hard for them right now. And they need to make some staffing changes. They need to hire, they need to cut back on, their marketing budget. It's just a common thing. So, I mean, and that being said, we have clients that have been with us for many years and, thankfully they're wonderful, but it's just, it's just the nature of the business, right? People get burnt out. Sometimes they just, they want to retire. They want to move on. It's funny. I get feedback from clients that tell me, when I call, how's things going? Well, I'm still in the restaurant business. Like, not everybody is as romanticized about it.
Yeah, my wife and I used to talk about years ago opening some kind of a restaurant. But now the older I get, the less excited about staying up late at night,
Yeah.
overseeing is not.
People ask me all the time with my food background and my love of everything food, like, what, oh, do you want to open a restaurant? I said, never. Never. It's so challenging, just everything from staffing to equipment breaking down and, leases rates going up. And just there's so many, I always say they've got a million plates in the air and spinning. And, and then the challenges of the reviews that they have to monitor, which is part of what we do for them. And, marketing is so different now for restaurants. It's so much more challenging. They can't just put an ad in the yellow pages and an ad in the newspaper and walk away. It's an everyday thing for restaurants. So there's a lot of things that they have to control and manage. It's a lot.
How long have you been, focused on restaurants as one of your primary target industries?
Well, Foxtrot Media is 15 years old. And probably about 5 years ago is when we decided to just lean into restaurants and food and beverage, solely because it was COVID. And I know it's a crazy time of year to decide to want to, focus only on restaurants because they were all closed down. But we had lost 2 of our very big clients and because of COVID, that's why we lost them. And So it was just a judgment call on my end. I said, we love working with our restaurant clients. We get the most feedback and engagement and, success through like social media marketing for our restaurant clients because it's just such a natural um, pairing. And so that's when we started to just specialize, in the restaurant, mostly restaurants. We have a couple of food and, cheese and a rum and things like that, beverages, but mostly we are restaurants.
And so what made you decide that restaurants were the vertical for you?
I think because I understand the industry, and I have just a passion for food and for restaurants. Jersey Bites, which is my food blog, I started 18 years ago, and that was all about restaurant critiquing in New Jersey. So I have a long history of just being in that world, and I enjoy it. It's something I'm passionate about. And, we've worked with law firms and chiropractors and printers and every other industry. And they're all great industries, but that's not where my passion lies. And so, as I'm getting older, and, I want something that excites me, and gets me, jazzed in the morning. And that's what the restaurant industry does. I love, part of what I do is actually go out and stand in the kitchens with the chefs and film them cooking. And that's just, so much fun for me. So yeah, we're real hands-on. We're a very small agency, and we're very much all of us, including the boss, is on site at the photo shoots and helping to create content.
Cool. And so, mm, are you a pretty much full service agency for restaurants? Or are there particular areas that you focus on serving them?
We're pretty much digital marketing. So we don't do print, we don't do menu design. We actually sublet an office with a larger agency that does everything else that we don't do. So website design, they can do graphic design and branding, logo design, all of that. So it's a great situation because I don't have to try to staff for all of those services. And if a restaurant client needs something like a website or anything else that we don't directly serve, we can just outsource it to NetWave. They're our landlord and also very old friends. We've known them for a very long time.
That's great.
Yeah, especially because 'cause we're so remote. We only come into the office 1 day a week. We work, very much remotely, plus we're visiting restaurant clients do not come to you. You have to go to the restaurant for meetings, for photo shoots, for whatever. So we're very much just out in the field a lot of the time.
So when you decided you wanted to make restaurants the primary focus, did that mean you actively resigned from other engagements, or some of them just naturally suffered attrition and restaurants grew into your primary vertical?
Well, I started to actively, you know, I hired a lead generation company and we specifically started to target restaurants. So, as we started to grow, we still have one OG client that's been with us that's not in the restaurant world, but for the most part, it was just a major shift. And now, if someone calls us from another industry, we tell them we just don't work with your industry, and we refer them to someone else. But yeah, I hired a lead generation company to actively reach out to the decision makers of restaurants all over New Jersey. We stick pretty much to New Jersey. I have a couple clients in New York and a couple in Pennsylvania. Um, but like I said, we're really hands-on. We travel to our clients and, 2 hours is pretty much all I wanna do travel-wise. I'm happy to consult with them. I'm happy to, but if they need photography, then we're gonna have to source somebody that's more local to them.
So what does consistent lead generation look like for the restaurant industry? Tangibly, what are you doing every week to generate those leads?
Well, it's a company that specializes in that, and it's basically cold emails. So they research the restaurants. They do a nice job. They really personalize the outreach because I didn't want anything that was going to just be cookie cutter. I know I find that insulting, and I don't want, to be my name associated with anything that's coming across as robotic or, anything like that. Um, but it's, in also, I am not one that's gonna go walking into restaurants and try to, like, get a meeting with somebody. That's just not my style at all. I don't even like calling anybody unless I have an appointment to call them. So, this seemed to be the most, efficient way to reach the decision makers because, the owners, the partners, the restaurant groups, they're not the ones answering the phones at the restaurant anyway. So you really do need somebody that has the time to actually research who are the decision makers and how do we reach them. So that's their specialty. I don't do it, but I do approve what they send out and review and all of that, and it works.
I'm always interested to understand how marketing firms do their own marketing.
Yeah. For me, that's the most successful. That has been, and restaurants are constantly being hit up by salespeople. So, everything from pest control services to POS systems to, you know, hood cleaning services. They're constantly getting barraged by people wanting to sell them services. So that's like, I don't want to be that guy that's like adds to the list, of all of those intrusive walk-ins and that kind of thing. So for me, the email and people don't like to be cold called either. So I feel like the email is, some people really didn't like the email either, but it's the only way that we can reach decision makers. And you just have to the good timing for them.
Yeah. The restaurants, I guess, as well as any kind of retail brick and mortar, I guess it's a little bit of a captive audience to salespeople. Like when I'm in a restaurant, I'm thinking sometimes we'll see salespeople coming in to sell, liquor replacements or POS systems or something. Like it's a location, you walk in at the right time, depending on the size of the restaurant. If they have multiple locations, you may walk in and talk right to the owner then and there. Whereas,
Yeah, you'd be very fortunate if you're getting to talk to the owner and
yeah,
probably will be the general manager
general manager, yeah.
or the bar manager. Um, and then you also have people that are walking in trying to sell them advertising space in magazines and newspapers. And then you have the local baseball club that wants, this and that. It's just endless, endless. People looking for gift card donations, and, the list goes on and on. So I
Yeah.
understand why they're a little, like
Yeah. The rest of
not
us work largely remotely. We can choose whether or not to answer our phone if we recognize the caller ID, and we can choose how many solicitation emails we're going to respond to. We don't have people walking in on
exactly.
us. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, but no, the walk-ins are endless.
So we're talking a lot about what you do for clients and why you like that, but I'm curious how you go about assessing success for your own business. Like if you had an awesome run for the next 3 to 5 years, what would that look like? And we sat here 3 to 5 years from now, what would success look like for you?
I'd like to get my client roster up to a steady, 60 clients, a year. We fluctuate, quite a bit, and um, it's hard to plan. It's hard to project. Um, it's hard to hire when things are fluctuating, and you can have a really fantastic year and then things just change. We had a big client that was in a mall. It was a very big client and they just decided to shut down and, there they went. It's the same with, I'm sure all agencies, regardless of the industry, you get these big, huge cutbacks in different industries, or you just lose a major client, and sometimes you have to let go, you know, a whole wing of staff members because that client was basically paying for all of those employees. So we're a very boutique, we're small, and I really love my employees so much that I wanna make it a secure environment for them. I don't hire anybody full-time unless I have the clients to support them, the number of clients that they would manage, that would support them. I've been fortunate that some will come on part-time and wait for that opportunity, um, 'cause it's really the only way that we can function, you know? Um And each staff member manages 10 clients, so that's where I know I have to have those 10 clients for a new hire, but you have to it's tricky.
Yeah, you might need to flex up to, 11 or 12, and then you
Yeah,
hire somebody, and maybe it goes down to 8 or 9 on average, and yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, to get a steady 50 or 60, 70, um, I'm not afraid to hire new people. It's just that I have to have those clients to support them, so.
You must have had some challenges or facing challenges at the moment, that you've had to overcome or need to overcome. What's 1 or 2 challenges that you would highlight for your business?
Definitely COVID. That was a huge one. Um, and the constantly changing digital landscape. So, when we started doing social media for our clients, because we were primarily a social media, company when we started, and, because I had a history in social media before anybody really did, and so, we started with just offering social media services for our clients, and, back then, it was not as challenging as it is now. We you just posted a photo, wrote a nice little caption, and, done. You're walked away. And they just keep changing and upping the ante and making you jump through more and more hoops, content-wise. So now it's not just a photo, it's a reel, which is a video that you have to put together, which is far more time-consuming than posting one photo. You have to learn these new skills. You have to learn how to use these new tools and these new apps, and it's just constant. It's constantly changing. So you have to always be on the lookout as far as what's coming next. And, my employees have to or which are they're great at, looking for new trends, looking for things that are cropping up, watching for what's working, what's not working, what's going in coming in, what's going out. All of those things they're challenging, and it's challenging to relate it to the client and have them understand that, okay, you can want 3 reels a week where we only give you 1 reel a week, but that's far more time on that's gonna be required to create that content. So, there's gonna be a higher price tag to that, right? And they don't necessarily understand all the time. Um, so that's a challenge, right? Um, and also the competitiveness of social media now. There's so many more people on it. There's so much more to see. So getting noticed is so much harder. And really, you have to put money into, meta ads in order to really get out there on a consistent basis. You can hit those big ones every once in a while, but for consistency, you really need to be paying for meta ads. So that's the challenge, I would say, biggest challenge.
Yeah, as kind of an external observer of the industry, it would seem like things have just gotten more complicated over the last few years. More, and now we've got more channels. We've got AI-driven channels. It's no longer just optimizing toward Google search. It's a lot of other things now to have to worry about, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and we don't really do a lot of SEO for our clients, but, local SEO, Google local SEO is very, very important, and so, monitoring reviews, that's another real fun one. So, monitoring all the reviews, responding to negative reviews for all of our clients, which helps them with the local search. So, that's another challenge. It's a very, very active channel, busy, and one that needs to be monitored at all times. So,
So how do you go about managing the accounting and finances in your agency? Who do you have do that work? And What kind of reports and metrics do you get?
I have a bookkeeper that's excellent. So she does the day-to-day and the monthly reporting and, sends everything over to my accountant. And then my accountant is in charge of the annual taxes and that kind of thing. It's probably a huge weak point for me. I do not come from a finance background. I come from a creative background. Um, and a lot of it just goes over my head. So that's probably a big pain point for me because I've asked my bookkeeper to kind of give me projections and help me figure out where I need to go and how I need to grow. And that's just not what she does. I had a business consultant working with me for a while. And he's like, no, bookkeepers look backwards. They don't look forward. Which I thought, oh, okay. That's
And that's a
interesting.
critical distinction that you've
Right.
realized, right? Most bookkeepers and accountants tell you what you did in the past, but you need more of a CFO or finance mind to
Right.
help you predict the future.
Right. Which I just have not been able to locate. And also someone that really understands agencies, the agency world, would be a big help, and also who understands the restaurant world. Because I get people telling me, "Well, you should be charging this and this," and I'm like, "Restaurants cannot afford that." I don't work in the pharmaceutical industry. I work with businesses that have very tight budgets, and they count every penny. And I just know what are willing to pay and what they're not willing to pay. And for me, I want something that's sustainable for them. I want to keep a client for years and years and years, not just somebody that can, they also don't come in and just hope that we're going to make them, worldwide famous in 3 months. Um, and they also need to have enough budget left to be able to pay for the paid advertising that they're going to need. So, um, yeah. So finding somebody that has that knowledge would be tremendous for us, for me.
Yeah, I share that experience. SmartBooks doesn't work with a lot of restaurants because they just have, like you said, limited budgets, and bookkeeping and accounting is usually not a huge priority for them. They need to bring in guests, serve them good food, retain staff, and the bookkeeping, is kind of an afterthought, unfortunately, for a lot of them, or they just, are used to paying a very low price for a lot of their employees. And the idea of paying up to get quality accounting and financial metrics and everything is just a little too much for a lot of them to get their arms around and get comfortable with. So I definitely can appreciate you're not necessarily a price setter. You are a price taker to some extent, but need to figure out how to deliver a lot of value for whatever that price level
Right.
is, right?
And yeah, and I get feedback from some that say, why aren't you charging more? Or you're very affordable. Did you? And they always say, like, I shouldn't tell you this, but you're very affordable. um, or I'll get feedback like, wow, I can't afford that. I can't afford you. So we're not for everybody. Let's put it that way. But we do provide so much value that I mean, and answering texts on the weekends and just offering guidance because we have this specialty. We work with just restaurants, so we can actually, you know, give you some consulting as far as what promotions have worked for other clients, or just what they're doing to fill the empty spaces during the week, and things like that. Um, which is very valuable, and we don't charge extra for that. That just comes with the territory, right? And also the photography and video that we create, that's all part of the package. So they don't have to hire an expensive outside photographer to get all this content that they need. I mean, they need thousands and thousands of pieces of content for social media, right? So, yeah, it's a lot of value.
I think that's, a lot of the benefits you can bring to bear by having such deep expertise and experience in the restaurant industry. And I haven't built that. And maybe if I focused more on it, I could figure it out. But you've definitely seems like you figured it out on the marketing side.
Right, right. Yeah, and maybe it's not worthwhile for you to do because they don't have the budgets for that. It's
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather spend money on you if they can bring in guests to keep paying the bills than
Right,
me if I'm just telling them what they did last month. So I'd
right.
keep figuring out how I would add more value to that vertical, like you do.
Yeah.
Cool. So you're having a lot of good success here, but let's think about kind of if we go back a number of years and think back to little Deborah Smith, did you think you'd be running your own business one day? I know you have some entrepreneurial experience before your current agency, right? So how did you
Right.
get into this entrepreneurial world?
Um, it's funny, my family surrounded by entrepreneurs, small businesses, that kind of thing. My first job out of college, we're going in the way, way back machine here. My first job out of college was I was the executive director of a chamber of commerce. So I was working with all business owners, right? I was working with 500 different small business owners and bank people, that kind of thing. So I got a real taste for that world, and then I briefly went into politics, and then ended up at the New Jersey Lottery because one of the politicians I worked for got promoted to there, and she took me along there. But then when I had my first child, I came home. I was like, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. And about 2 weeks in, I was like, I'm kind of bored. During nap time, I would go online, and it was the day of dial-up. It was 1990. My son is actually just today is his birthday. So he just turned 28. So I could tell you it was 28 years ago that I was just searching online for ideas for an at-home business that I could raise my kids and then also work from home. And so long story short, I ended up starting a online nanny recruiting website called Nanny Classifieds. And it was very basic. It didn't cost a lot of money. And it was basically, families would put their help wanted up there. Nannies would put their resumes. If a family wanted to reach out to the nanny, they would have to pay in order to get access to the nanny's contact information. And I ran that for 13 years. And so while I was doing that, and ultimately sold it, but while I was doing it, social media was just coming about. So, back before it was called social media, we still had social media. We had chat rooms on AOL, we had message boards, we had email groups, um, and all of those things, all those tools I used to promote my nanny business and to recruit nannies and families. And I had an email list called Parents with Nannies and had that for many years. So when the new tools came about, I was on Twitter in 2008, and then Facebook. So I started to use these tools for my own business, and then started seeing that other businesses were really interested in how to do this and had no clue. So then I started speaking and doing workshops and trainings, and I traveled all over. I was doing a lot of big conferences, teaching LinkedIn, teaching Facebook, and eventually Instagram. We didn't even have Instagram then. Um, and that's how when I saw the need for the businesses that needed help doing that, that's when I decided to start my agency. I sold Nanny Classifieds because Care.com came into the picture, and Care.com came in with a lot of money. And basically, I saw the writing on the wall that I didn't have that kind of investor backing. So luckily, there was somebody out there that was buying up a lot of the smaller in-home childcare sites. So they purchased Nanny Classifieds along. I had a bunch of different sites that were all feeder sites into that. Um, so they bought that, and then I moved on to the agency, and we started with just social media. But then, as my clients requested things, I said sure, and so now we offer PR, and email marketing, and paid Google ads, paid Meta ads, all of that. So that's how I got started in my world.
Very cool. You started your own business, figured out how to do marketing, got really good at it, and then opened up your marketing services to all these other business owners. And this was started in the late 90s, right? So you were a pioneer in this whole space.
Yeah. And, and I was a psychology major in college, so it was, there was zero, planning in my career path. It was all just happened to whoever, people I met along the way, and then the birth of the internet. And I was so intrigued by it. It was like the wild, wild west, and it was amazing to log on and be able to talk to people all over the country. And then I made friends with my nanny business. I ended up being on the International Nanny Association board, and we go to conferences and still have very good friends that are nannies and agency owners, that I met in that world. So it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking back to my own days when I discovered the internet and everything. I went to college in the fall of 1994 and discovered the World Wide Web and email and designed, learned a little bit of HTML coding to create a website for my water polo club. And I graduated and went to work somewhere. We still had a fax line and a dial-up modem. And we kind of migrated into how we are today.
My kids are just, they just take it so for granted that that's just, you know, the way of the world. And my oldest is a salesperson for a company that is software company. And that's what he sells. So it's just crazy that I remember when I worked for the senator and the internet was just coming along, and he was always a real forward thinker. And he just said, we're not going to need encyclopedias. We're not going to need, all of these things that we have. And we couldn't fathom it. We're just like, no, that can't be. And I remember one of my friends saying to me, oh, nobody's ever going to hire a babysitter off of the internet. Like, oh, yeah. They hire everything off the internet now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything.
It's interesting you mentioned early days working in politics in New Jersey, because my wife did the same during and after college in New Jersey. She worked for Mayor Bullwig and Elizabeth. She worked for McGreevey before and during, I think, when he became governor, before his downfall, and all
Yeah.
these other people that I've met over the years, and then she realized she had to get out of that.
Yeah. It was a great experience. It was pretty brief for me. It was Christine Todd Whitman was the governor then. But I was in my 20s and got to go to Trenton twice a week, and it was a good education for me. It also taught me that I never want to run for any offices either.
Mm. So you learned that. I'm curious what else, if you look back over the years and could give yourself some advice when you first started your agency, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, gosh. Um, to specialize sooner. Um, Not to be a generalist. It took me 10 years to learn that. And it's so hard to just have to learn new industries every time you take on a new client. Um, it's it's just much more challenging, right? Once you specialize in something that you can really develop a deep understanding and knowledge of, um, it's a no-brainer. Like, you don't have to think about it. You just know and I mean, sometimes I get a new client that might be a different type of cuisine, a different ethnic cuisine that I'm not very familiar with, because we're very diverse here in New Jersey. But that's fun for me. Like, I'm all over it. Um, but yeah, that's probably the advice the early on about. And I would also tell myself to get a really good bookkeeper and a really good accountant from day one, because they can really save your butt. And I got audited by the Department of Labor, because they were claiming that the 1099s that we had should have been employees. And it was crazy. Like, the woman I took a 2-day photography course from in New York City, they flagged it as a 1099 that should have been an employee. There were, people like a blogger that wrote a couple articles for my blog, all of these things that they flagged, which gave me an absolute heart attack when I got the letter. Um, I had it's the burden of proof is on you. So you have to go and you have to make sure that that the person has a website. You have to make sure the person is an LLC. All of these things that I had no clue, you know. I just was like, gig economy, like they're going to just do this little bit of work. It's not going to be long term. It's just a project, and I really had no idea that, and it's a shame that we here in New Jersey, we can't have more of a gig economy. Because there's the mom that, just wants to write some articles while she's raising her kids or whatever, and it make it so much more difficult and so much more labor intensive, and it's a shame that that has to be that way. But that's something I learned the hard way, and thankfully, I wasn't fined because I had all of the 1099s were legitimate 1099s, but I had to have all of that proof that they were. Um, and that's a really scary letter to get. It's just one of those and thank God I had a really good bookkeeper that I could reach out to and just like, don't panic. It's happened to some of my other clients, and my accountant was fantastic. Also, she would get on the phone with the auditor and talk to him because I just couldn't understand him, first of all. And, um, those things are super important to have right from the get-go.
Yeah, I think there's two angles there. One of them is compliance, like you're describing. You don't want to get audited and fined or in deeper trouble from the government. And then the second thing is with a good bookkeeping accounting solution, they help you look forward and predict the future and plan a little bit more in addition to telling you what happened in the past, or at least, they can kind of translate your financial statements into performance metrics to help you know
Mhm.
what's really driving profit in the business. And then you as the entrepreneurial genius can figure out, how to manage those metrics, what you need to do operationally with clients, with offering, and everything. But, somebody kind of move past like giving you an income statement or a balance sheet, it's good, and if you can get those by the 15th of every month, that's better than most. So it's still an upgrade over what many small business owners are getting, but it's really getting that next level up with some performance analysis, some metrics, maybe some basic forecasting. That's where
Right.
we can also add value as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and warning you when your taxes are gonna be, like, sky high. Uh,
Yeah.
the tax that I'm not looking forward to September 15th.
Yeah, in our tax practice, that's one of the things we commit to do is avoiding end of year surprises and helping you manage, project your tax liability over the course of the year. And if you're inclined to try to minimize taxes, then what are some tactics and strategies that could be implemented during the
Right.
year to support that? So I feel the pain of these surprise year-end tax bills, and that's something we try to help clients avoid.
Yeah. Uh,
So outside of work, I know you love food and eating at restaurants. What do you really is that it? Do you have other notable interests you want to mention?
I used to do theater and sing, and I was a real theater geek, but I haven't done that in a while. I always say when I retire, I'll go back to doing something on stage. Um, Jersey Bites is kind of my hobby on steroids. So, and it ties into my restaurant world. And so on our off days, I mean, we're really very food focused,
Yeah.
like we just went on a weekend, little vacation in Maryland, and it's all surrounded by like, where are we gonna stop here for this restaurant that we've heard about? We really think it would be really cool, which it really was cool. And then we went on down to Maryland and, scoped out the places that we were gonna go. I'm always creating content. I'm always taking video and photos, and too much to the chagrin of my children. But it's just ingrained in me. It's 18 years I've been doing this. So that's really, I mean, traveling and experiencing new places and new cuisines and that kind of thing is probably gonna be my hobby until I can't do it anymore, you know? But that's it. I don't have I don't have time for anything else. I mean, I get a workout in if I can. And
And for a Jersey Shore cookbook, I assume that was a cookbook with recipes in it, right?
right, right. Yeah. So yeah, the cookbook was a collection of 50 recipes from 50 different restaurants. So they're not my recipes. They're recipes from Jersey Shore restaurants. And my job was collecting them, which was a real big job. And then also writing a little story, short story about each restaurant. So everything from what's the best seat in the house, and what do the locals know to ask for that you might not, or what happened during Hurricane Sandy to you, all of those things. And so I got some good stories from them about things like that. So it's a cute book. It's a neat like souvenir, full color hardcover. So it's like, I call it the coffee table cookbook. So people have it on display. I have a friend that went to an Airbnb in Italy, and my book was there, which was like crazy. I just had a woman text me or ping me on Instagram, and she just found my book in Indiana. So it's kind of fun when my book is spotted in places outside of New Jersey.
Cool. So it's the Jersey Shore Cookbook. I assume that's available on Amazon or other places if people want to check
That's
it out.
Yep, still going strong.
And then Jersey Bites, I assume it's like jerseybites.com or something. Where can people find that?
Jerseybites.com, bites.com. So
Nice.
I actually
Yeah.
have a recipe going up very soon on Jersey Bites for yellow tomato sauce that I got from a chef. That is my new obsession. It is so delicious. So if you like tomatoes and you like yellow tomatoes, you're gonna have to give it a try.
Well, the next time we make it down to New Jersey, I'll have to browse the site first and plan out a restaurant or two to visit.
Yeah, or just email me, text me. I'll tell you where to go. Um, but yeah,
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Deborah, for your time today and everything you've shared about the evolution of your career and the different businesses you've had and what you're doing for clients today and all your passion around cooking and restaurants.
yeah,
Clearly, you seem to find the niche that really resonates with you, which is awesome. So thank you very much.
yeah. Thank you. It was fun.
So for those listening, if you learned something today or just were interested or enjoyed it, please share the word about this podcast. Let's get it out there to into the hands of other marketing agency firm owners. Um, so thanks again, Deborah. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time.